Hi, this is Dustin Hausner. Welcome to Jewish Culture and Jewish Awareness. I'm the Jewish Outreach and Program Director at the Wayne YMCA. All our Jewish programming is funded through the Jewish Federation of Northern New Jersey. Today is one of our special episodes, and normally when we do an episode like this, it's about something that's informational for everyone, that everyone can learn something from, and specifically for Welcoming Week and Welcoming America, which is September 12th to the 20th, we are doing a number of different programs meant to learn, to educate. And this year is a very important year with the upcoming elections. I say elections because while it is the presidential election, we have many down ballot elections that are important depending on where you live, of course. And today we have someone who is incredibly knowledgeable about how to vote this year and is going to be able to answer a lot of questions that have been stirring on social media, Facebook, and other things like that. Someone who's a truly accomplished individual. It is my great honor to introduce the Passaic County Superintendent of Elections and Commissioner of Registration, Shona Mack-Pollock. Shona, it's so great to have you here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Dustin. It's my pleasure to be here, and hopefully this will be a very informative interview for all of your viewers, and we can disseminate as much information as possible about the upcoming election. As you said, this is a very important elections that we're having in November, presidential on the ballot, but also three public questions that are also very important for voters. And again, all the way down the ballot, we have some school elections on as well, and as local municipal elections. So very important time in our nation and our country and our state's history.
No, absolutely. And I'm very thankful for you being able to make the time with us today. So before we get into the specifics of voting this year, I was wondering for those who are maybe not as familiar with your position, if you could talk a little bit about what it is your position does and what it is that you do in regards to elections.
Sure. My position is Superintendent of Elections, as you indicated. I'm also the Commissioner of Registration for Passaic County. In Passaic County, we actually have three different election offices, which is great for checks and balances in the system. Specifically, the Superintendent of Elections office handles the voter registration applications. We also have access to the statewide voter registration database, also known as the SVRS. Although the state manages that database, we input the information that the voters have access to when they go to the Division of Elections website and look up information regarding whether or not they're actually registered to vote. We also handle the voting machines. I'm the custodian of the voting machines. We, on election night, process the provisional ballots that voters may cast at the polling locations. And I also enforce all of the election laws under Title 19. As I indicated, there are two other offices in Passaic County that also handle election work. That's the county clerk. Our county clerk in Passaic County is Danielle Ireland Imhoff. The county clerk's office is charged with mailing the vote by mail ballots, and that's a really important responsibility, especially this year, as we've been ordered here in Passaic County to have two all vote by mail elections countywide. That was in the primary, and then again in November. And the Board of Elections is responsible for receiving the vote by mail ballots. They also are responsible for hiring poll workers, training the poll workers, and the districting or the redistricting for all of the polling locations. So it's a huge responsibility, and it's excellent that we are sharing that responsibility throughout the county.
Excellent. And I just want to mention that while, of course, you represent Passaic County, a lot of the rules, guidelines, everything else is through the state of New Jersey. So a lot of that is going to be very similar, regardless of if a person watches from a different part of New Jersey. It's all under the same guidelines.
Yes.
So let's jump in a little bit to voting, of course. I want to ask, not just for new voters, but especially with COVID-19, what are the actual ways that someone can vote this year?
Well, this year, because of the public health crisis, in November, we have a general election. As you know, November 3rd is the election date. Governor Murphy ordered on August 14th in Executive Order 177 that all registered voters should be sent a vote by mail ballot. So our county clerk will be sending all registered active voters a vote by mail ballot with a prepaid postage paid stamped envelope so that the voters can return that ballot and this is in several ways. Through the United States Postal Service, you can, at your leisure, complete your ballot and then drop it in the U.S. mail. The county is also charged with establishing different locations to establish vote by mail drop boxes. For the primary election, the governor ordered that we have at least 5 throughout the county vote by mail drop boxes. This was actually ordered statewide. Every county throughout the state was ordered to have at least 5 vote by mail drop boxes. For the November general election, the governor actually increased that number because the vote by mail drop boxes were very well received by voters. They felt very comfortable and confident that those votes or the ballots that they placed in the vote by mail drop boxes would be received timely. Because they were going to be placed by the voter in the box and then retrieved directly by the Board of Elections, who was in charged with determining whether or not that ballot should be accepted. And then the other way that the governor ordered that the vote by mail ballots can be deposited is at a polling location. So you can take your vote by mail ballot this year for this election, because typically you're not allowed to do this in New Jersey. But for this election, the governor ordered that all vote by mail ballots can be turned in at the polling location if you turn your ballot in to a poll worker. But you're only allowed to turn in your ballot to the poll worker. And there's going to be an affirmation that you have to sign when you get to the polling location, indicating that you are indeed that voter and it is your ballot that you're turning in. And of course, the Board of Elections office will be available for voters who would like to just personally hand in their ballot to staff at the Board of Elections. And here in Passaic County, the Board of Elections office is located at 401 Grand Street in Patterson. Polling locations will vary depending on your municipality, but the governor ordered at least 50% of the county should have, there should be at least 50% polling locations available throughout the county.
No, thank you very much. A lot of very useful and important information you just shared. So, and again, I'm going to go back to quite a few of the things that you just mentioned, but for the moment, in regards to the ballots being sent out, when should residents expect when should they expect for the ballots to be received by them by mail?
So Governor Murphy also ordered in the executive order that the county clerks begin to mail the vote by mail ballots around October 5th. So with the volume of ballots that are going to be mailed out, we're expecting voters to receive their ballots on or about, within a week of that time. So if you have not received your ballot from the county clerk's office within a week, I would say around October 12th or 15th, you should probably reach out to the county clerk and let them know that you have not received your ballot so that they can determine what the issue is. But I would like to raise, there's a method. If you go to the New Jersey Division of Elections website, you can, if you open up an account, you can track your ballot online and determine whether or not your ballot has actually been mailed out by the county clerk. So that can allay a lot of voters' concerns about whether or not they are indeed an active registered voter. And they will also be able to determine when the county clerk mailed out their ballot.
No, that is incredibly useful and such a great resource, obviously, for many people who are going to be potentially nervous about it, but obviously I'm sure they'll all come in on just fine.
Mm-hmm.
So when does a mail-in ballot have to be received? In other words, can it be shown to have been sent out the day of the election and still count, or does it have to arrive on election day? That's a question I think a number of people have asked in the past.
Yes. So typically the ballots have to be received by the date of the election, or at least postmarked by the date of the election. And again, the date of the election for this year is November 3rd. The vote by mail drop boxes that are going to be placed throughout the county will be closed on 8 p.m. November 3rd. So that's, if you're going to personally put it in a drop box, you have to make sure it's there by 8 p.m. If you're going to take it to a poll worker at a polling location, you have to make sure that you turn it in before the polls close at 8 p.m. on November 3rd. If you're going to put it in the United States Postal Service, I would recommend that you put it in the mailbox as soon as you complete your application. But because, again, of the volume of mail that we're expecting the post office to have to be responsible for, I would say not to wait not to wait longer than a week before the election, but certainly ensure that your ballot is postmarked no later than November 3rd. The governor ordered that the Board of Elections is able to receive ballots that are postmarked by November 3rd up to 7 days following the election. As long as it's postmarked November 3rd, the board can receive it. If it's not postmarked, but it happens to be delivered to the Board of Elections by the post office within 48 hours of the election, the board can still receive it. So if it was in the mail, somehow it didn't get postmarked, and it does arrive at the board's office within 48 hours of the election, the board will receive it. But again, I highly and strongly recommend that voters complete their ballots and send them out as soon as they are able to do so, but to not wait.
Well, as you're saying, and I obviously personally agree, is, if you send it out right away, then it's one less thing for you to have to deal with. It's one less thing for them to have to be stressed out about. It's just easier for everyone if once they receive it, they send it out right away, just to make it easier and make sure the vote is counted.
Yes. Yep.
So I want to ask, with COVID-19 and the likely large influx of mail-in ballots, as you had mentioned and alluded to, what are the ways you and your department are ensuring voter integrity and insecurity with such an influx of mail-in ballots this year?
Well, we have always, and because of the responsibilities of the elections office, my position, I was appointed by Governor Murphy. Before that, I was deputy superintendent. I was appointed by Governor Christie. We very firmly believe in the integrity of the electoral process, and that goes for every single election office in Passaic County. And that's why it's very important, I believe, to have all three offices working together, but they also have different responsibilities. In order to maintain the checks and balances, again, we have one office that sends out the vote by mail ballots. We have one office that receives the vote by mail ballots. On election night, my office handles provisional ballots. And there is, of course, the chain of custody issue that we're asking all of the voters to comply with the statutes. Right now, the statute requires that you can only turn in your ballot at most and up to 3 others if you're going to hand deliver it to the Board of Elections. If you're turning in anybody else's ballot, you have to make sure that the bearer portion is completed on the ballot. And that has to be done in the presence of the voter whose ballot you are going to be turning in or bearing to the Board of Elections. That's to make sure that that person also is in agreement and consents to you serving as a bearer on their behalf for purposes of that election. So that should ensure some confidence in the system, that there is a chain of custody that the legislators have deemed necessary to make sure that there is no nefarious activity. Again, the vote by mail drop boxes, there is going to be, I believe, at least 13, possibly 1 in every municipality throughout the county. They are secure drop boxes. They are under 24-hour surveillance. And they are, again, only the voter should be placing his ballot and other ballots that have been properly beared or noticed as beared by the other voters into those drop boxes. If you're turning it into a poll worker at a polling location, you have to affirm that this is your ballot. All of the checks and balances are in place. The poll workers are going to confirm that this is indeed the voter. And we want to make sure that the integrity of the process remains in place. Once the ballot goes to the Board of Elections, it's a bipartisan commission in Board of Elections commissioners. You have 2 Republicans on the board, you have 2 Democrats on the board. The people that are actually handling the ballots when they get there, it's always a bipartisan team that works to ensure that everything is done properly. So all of these things are in place. Again, the checks and balances just to make sure that the integrity of the process is in place and that voters can remain confident that the system works and that their vote is going to, that the outcome of the election is going to reflect exactly the way they voted.
No, excellent. So let's say a person wants to bring their ballot to the Board of Elections. Ideally, as you mentioned, everyone would mail in, but for someone who wants to physically bring in their ballot to the Board of Elections in their area, when will Board of Elections start accepting ballots to be dropped off?
As soon as the ballots go out, you can bring and you receive it and you turn it in. The board begins to receive them and accept them in their office. So they know that from the clerk when the ballots have gone out. And good question, because people I know are concerned about what when can they start turning them. Are concerned about when can they start turning them in. Everybody's very engaged in what this election it brings and presents, and I'm thrilled about that. Civic engagement, it really is important at every stage. We do a lot of voter outreach at the high schools, and it's important to get our young people involved as well. Our senior citizens are very involved still, and I love that they are so aware and they still have so many opinions about everything that's going on. So the board wants to make sure that as soon as the ballots come out, there are people there and they're available to receive those ballots. So as soon as you get them out. You can turn them in personally. There's no need to wait. You can put it in the drop box. The drop boxes will be open, I believe, towards the end of this month. But certainly, as soon as you get your ballot, everybody is in position. We're planning right now in my office, and we're preparing for this election.
No, it sounds like you're getting everything as organized as possible, which is always a wonderful thing to hear. And while every election is, of course, important, it's with COVID-19, a lot of people are engaged and, of course, asking a lot of important questions. So it's great to hear you having so much information for us. I still have a few more questions I would love to ask you. In regards to when should people be able to know what their voting location is this year if they choose to go to a voting location to vote?
So, as I indicated before, Governor Murphy ordered in his executive order that at least 50% of the polling locations are open in the county, and I believe that there's going to be one open in every municipality. So the municipal clerks have been working with the Board of Elections. They've identified polling locations. The Board of Elections commissioners are going to making a decision about that, I believe, in the coming weeks. It has not been finalized, but I believe that the polling locations have been identified. Some of them will be similar to where they were to the places that they were using in the primary. I believe a few of the municipalities have asked for additional polling locations because we're expecting a large turnout, of course. And we don't want people to wait on lines to vote. That's not something that we're accustomed to doing in New Jersey, right? Voters are very used to going in, signing the poll book, getting their voting authority slip, casting their vote, and then leaving. It's usually no longer than a 5-minute process in New Jersey, and that's how we like it, right? So with this election, because we have fewer poll workers who are going to be available to us, the governor recognized that was going to be an issue, so he asked he only ordered 50% of the polling locations, if we could possibly do that, to make sure that all of the voters are safe and the poll workers are safe at the same time. But we will be getting, before the election, a sample ballot card, a postcard, which will tell you exactly where your polling location is for the election if you choose to go to a polling location. But again, because all of the active registered voters are going to be receiving a vote by mail ballot, the election is kind of coming to you in a sense, so you can vote wherever you are, right? As a vote by mail voter, you don't necessarily have to go to a polling location. And the polling locations at this time are only going to be to turn in your vote by mail ballot. And if you go to a polling location and you'd like to vote at the polling location, you will still be handed a paper provisional ballot. There will be a few in-person accessible devices for voters who are not able to vote a paper provisional ballot. Voters who may have mobility issues, or voters who are blind and need an audio device. But again, those voters have to affirm that they have a disability that prevents them from voting a paper ballot, and they require an in-person voting device. But if you go to a polling location, you will still be handed a paper provisional ballot that looks just like the mail-in ballots that you received in the mail if you're a registered voter.
Do you know any specific precautions that are being taken at the few polling locations that will be open, and also just even the Board of Elections, to make sure things like social distancing, mask wearing, hand sanitizer, so forth are being done? Just as you said, it sounds like you're taking every precaution, but just want to reassure anyone who's watching this, the things that are going to be done or are being done.
That's a great question, especially in light of everything that's been going on with COVID-19. We were all very seriously impacted, especially in this area. And so and I'm thankful that Governor Murphy recognized that, for the safety of our poll workers, for the safety of our voters, for the safety of election staff and officials. We are adhering to CDC guidelines in the polling locations. The state has assisted in providing PPE for all of the election, for the poll workers, for election staff, and for voters. If you enter the polling location, you will be asked to wear a mask if you can. The poll workers are going to be sanitizing the area after every voter uses a particular area. If you're going to be casting a paper provisional ballot, you're going to be sitting behind a privacy screen, and that area will be sanitized after every voter uses it. Every voter will be given their own individual pen to use, and that pen will be going with that voter. They will be using sanitizer. The poll workers are going to be wearing masks. They'll have gloves on. They will also be given face shields, and we'll be spraying and disinfecting. There will be tape on the floor that has been measured out so that there can be 6 feet distance between all of the voters and anybody in the building. And we're going to make sure that the tables are separated to ensure that everybody is properly distanced and everybody is kept safe while they're in there.
Fantastic. So you've talked about a couple of dates, obviously the actual election day itself, but from now till the actual election day, what are important dates and deadlines viewers should know leading up to election day, like registration and so forth?
Okay, so I would like to tell you, and this was something that was really exciting. Last Friday, and it seems like so long ago because we have gotten so many online voter registrations since this went live last Friday, but the state of New Jersey did implement a online voter registration system. And this is something, since I've been Deputy Superintendent of Elections, people have been calling, and that was in 2013, and as I was appointed a superintendent last year. People have been calling and inquiring about the state of New Jersey going forward with an online voter registration. So this is something that's really, really exciting, especially for our millennials who like to do everything online. So if you go to, again, the New Jersey State Department, the New Jersey Division of Elections website, you will be able to register online, which is good because, again, with everything going on with COVID-19, we like to reduce or limit paper usage and any risks that are associated with that. So that went live last Friday, and you can register to vote online through October 13th. That's the registration deadline for the state if you plan on voting in the November general election. You can still register to vote on paper, and that deadline, again, is October 13th. As long as it's postmarked and received in my office with a postmark by October 13th, we will make sure that you are registered and you will get your vote by mail ballot by the clerk in time for the election. Or if you choose to go to the polling location, your name should be in the poll book for November 3rd. Here in Passaic County, if you would like to come in person to my office at 501 River Street in Patterson, we will be having 2 nights for late night voter registration. That's October 9th and October 13th. We'll be open from 8:30 a.m. to 9 o'clock p.m. to receive voter registrations. The Passaic County clerk will be having in-person extended hours for second ballot requests at her office in Patterson, and also at the Wanacue or Haskell satellite office on Ringwood Avenue. And that is the Saturday before the election. I think it's October 31st, actually, Halloween, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. So those are some important dates that people should take note of, especially the voter registration deadline. That's really important. And I want to just emphasize that voters who are 17 years old can register to vote, but you cannot actually vote until you turn 18. And if you turn 18, you happen to turn 18 on November 3rd, you should register to vote because you can vote in this election.
No, that's great to know. I didn't know that. So I want to ask, because you mentioned a number of different websites and places for people to go, especially that you now have this launch of online registration, which I think makes life a lot easier. What are, for people who want to learn more information about either becoming a poll watcher or their registration or so forth, what are the best websites or way to contact you or the different departments to make sure that whatever information they need, they can get?
Oh, that's excellent. You know why? Because we need poll workers, and we need healthy, young, able-bodied poll workers. So we have college students that are watching, or students that are home with this hybrid schedule. If you're 18 and you have some time on election day to help out, please sign up to be a poll worker. You can visit our website for the 3 Passaic County offices, election offices, at www.passaiccounty.nj.org. And if you click on the different links, we actually have links that'll take you to the state website, which I think, I'll just go to that, is nj.gov/state/elections. And you can find out how to track your mail-in ballot. You can become a poll worker, find out more information on becoming a poll worker, and you can also complete your online voter registration.
Excellent. Before we wrap up, I just kind of want to give an open opportunity, since we covered a lot of different ground, which is wonderful. I think answered a lot of people's inquiries and questions. If there's anything else you think just anyone watching who's planning to vote should know about the upcoming election, or anything that you would encourage.
Well, I would encourage everyone to make sure that they are paying attention to all of the information that you're hearing from election officials. There's a lot of misinformation, I know, that's being put out, and there's different information, and some people mean well, but I know that the county clerk is going to be putting out regular videos going forward in the next month or so. I know that the state is doing a huge voter education outreach concerning the November election as well. So if you visit our county website, if you visit the county clerk and our social media page to get information that could really help you about the vote by mail process, because it is important. We want every vote to count. We don't want voters to be disenfranchised because they are not getting information from the right sources. And I know that this is, again, people are engaged, and I love it. And I think that this is something that they should do, not just for this election, but for every single election, because we have more than one election every 4 years. We have an election every, at least twice a year in New Jersey, depending on where you live. You'll have a primary, you'll have a general. And in some places you have a municipal election in May, you have school boards. So stay engaged, stay involved in the process. And vote, but also make sure that you are paying attention to the correct information. And what you're doing, Dustin, I think is wonderful, to make sure that people are getting information from sources that are reliable. And if you need additional information, again, please visit our website, the state website. Every county has a board of elections, but there are only 10 counties that have superintendent of elections. But the board of elections and county clerks are available in every single county. So those are really good places to start if you're looking for information about the upcoming election in November.
Well, I want to sincerely thank you once again for making the time. I think the benefit of this is obviously people who've had questions are getting a lot of them filled, or they'll know where the right sources or places to go to get their questions answered. As you mentioned, every year we have elections. Voting is incredibly important. So it's always important to make sure that everything is organized and people know their rights. So I think we accomplished that greatly today. So again, I want to thank you. I want to say to the person watching this or individuals watching this, I hope you stay safe, hope you stay healthy, hope you'll definitely vote. Preference is vote by mail just because it's a lot safer. But if you're going to do it in person, then obviously just know that protocols are being taken to make sure the safety of it. So just want to thank you all so much for watching this. And Shona, thank you so much again.
Thank you so much for having me. And I agree. Everybody, please stay safe, stay healthy. And we're going to do everything that we possibly can to make sure that we have a successful election here in New Jersey. We always do. We always do. But we want to make sure that everybody is safe in the process. So
Absolutely.
thank you very much for having me.
Have a wonderful day.